FOBtv, the future of business. I'm your host, Kevin Benedict. I'm a futurist here at TCS, and I want to thank everyone out there today. I want to say Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy holidays of any kind for everyone out there, and thanks for joining us. Now, our guest today is Joe Carson. And when you look up the word guru, not only is there a picture of Joe Carson there, but it means the definition is a person with knowledge, expertise, and experience. And that certainly fits Joe to a T. Joe, he's the CEO of Spin Strategies, a consulting and advising company. He's been the vice president and chief procurement officer at Micron Technologies, the world's #2 computer memory company in the world. He's been worldwide operations, chief of staff, and operational excellence leadership at Juniper Networks. He's been the vice president of global supply chain operations at Census and vice president, chief procurement officer at Lucent Technologies. Just to go back a few years, we could keep going back because Joe has gray hair like I do.
Kevin, your words are too kind. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for joining us today. Where are you calling in from?
Glad to join you. All the way from Boise, Idaho.
Wow, I'm in Boise, Idaho. What a coincidence.
How about that for being a coincidence? Lovely here today. Nice, balmy 32 degrees, slight snow. Great to join you today.
That's awesome. So over the last couple of years, Joe, you've been heads down focused on the application of artificial intelligence within supply chain. And we're all talking about artificial intelligence today. And so I wanted to bring you together and let's take a deep dive, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of my favorite topics. I love talking about it.
All right. So when we say AI, sometimes it comes across, it sounds like this is one giant monolithic thing that we're talking about, but it isn't, is it, Joe?
It isn't. It isn't. You know, when I talk to my colleagues, they're starting to use the words AI to kind of be a substitute for anything that has technology in it. You know, you look on the web or you look on anything that talks about technology. It could be a calculator, and they're talking about it having artificial intelligence, but it's really not true. Especially when you think about in the supply chain world and in an operations world, you really have to break down AI as to be a very specific application where you're doing some more advanced work, advanced analytical work. You're bringing in a ton of more data that needs to be analyzed, and you're coordinating a lot more action. So when you think about kind of the tools that are out there today, you might be thinking about business intelligence tools, right? They look at dashboards and bring data together. And those are very, very useful to be able to see all of your data at one time. That's not really the same as artificial intelligence, right? That cuts it short. And if you think about, you know, what you see a lot of times, a vertical software stack that you buy from a supplier, maybe it's to plan your build plan for a particular order set. I got these orders and I got to build these on time. I got to get these components and they got to kind of show up. Well, that's fine, but you really have to turn over the decision-making of a lot of that still to that human endpoint. And where AI kind of fits in, it overlays on top of that and really takes it to the next level where you're really seeing a lot of disparate data sets kind of being pulled together, and that algorithm work that lays on top of it, that really is that intelligence that makes artificial intelligence really what it is.
I've heard it described as some systems are humans in the loop of making decisions. And sometimes humans, you can build a system where humans are on the loop rather than in it. And the difference is humans are overseeing the decision-making process, but they're not making the decisions.
Yeah, exactly. To make it work for them, to tweak it and control it and make it work for them. Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely a more on the loop, to use your vernacular, is what we're talking about here.
Got it.
To help make decisions kind of better.
So we're seeing a lot of focus on decision-making improvement. So where do you see AI contributing in the supply chain space?
Yeah, I think the kind of Uber message is this idea of there's a lot of things going on and you've got to kind of react to it in real time and make decisions. But maybe worth kind of double clicking down on that a bit. You think about the autonomous driving vehicle that will drive itself, and it's kind of go from point A to point B. Kind of used to that analogy now of saying, well, I can program it to go to someplace, and it can decide for me and make different decisions about, do I take this street or that street? Do I turn right or turn left? But what really is the key to it, and this is where we start getting into the importance of supply chain, is the idea of making decisions along the way. Well, I was going to turn right here, but I just got alerted that there was a traffic jam. So now I'm going to go straight and take a right at the next turn. Or, golly, I need to slow up because there was a pedestrian in that walkway crossing the road. Mm-hmm. So now you've got the ability of a system to take all that data in and interpret all that and make decisions along the way. In the supply chain world, it's kind of the same thing. You've got the supply chain teams that are out there building a build plan and trying to figure out what orders that they need to process. And they're coordinating with a procurement organization that has selected suppliers from where you're going to get components at certain factories. But all that data has to kind of be put together so that when you get an order set and you start with that, you already have not only the elements of making the decision, but now AI can be used to accelerate those decisions. And this is really probably the strongest use case of AI inside the supply chain, is this idea of, I have an order, I'm building it, and then 5 minutes later, something happens. And I got to kind of change my routine and change my ideas, maybe change my suppliers, change my build plan, and then see how it goes. And then once you do that, 5 minutes later, something else happens or some other piece of element needs to be kind of considered and put in place to go do that. So this is where I see AI really making its mark inside supply chain. And it may be the best place inside most, operational businesses, because you've got kind of that element of a lot of data that has to be considered, a lot of different alternatives that need to be probabilistically analyzed, and then a lot of action to coordinate after that. That's just faster than humans can do.
Oh man. So
yeah,
like artificial intelligence, it's not one thing when we say supply chain, is it? So supply chain has a lot of different tasks and responsibilities and components to it. So let's kind of break down supply chain into some of its various parts. Where can AI help us in these different areas?
Yeah, let me just build up on the kind of on the last answer. So first of all, you think about a procurement organization. Again, they're in charge of the sourcing strategy. They've picked a bunch of suppliers. Sometimes it's thousands of different suppliers that you need to go build a certain set of products. And from those suppliers, they build those components at factories that are kind of way out in the world. So then you've got a supply chain planning organization that says, well, I got a bunch of orders for a bunch of products, and now I've got to kind of move those along in a way that I get them delivered at a certain point in time, sometime in the future. Well, then you've got to put those pieces together. And this is where I see the crux of it happening. So in any of the organizations that I managed, of course, you'd have a sales and operation planning process that would get those two teams together and figure out, how are we going to pull from these suppliers and then deliver on our products, in the end. And kind of like we were talking about before, this idea of then something happens and you've got to be able to react to it. And thinking about that reaction, it's not a straightforward reaction, right? There's a lot of data you have to get. If you learn from somewhere in your data input source that a supplier is falling down, well, the next alternative component may not be quite the same. It may not be quite as available, may not be available at the same price. So that may mean you go back to your build plan and say, well, maybe I don't want to build this order. I got to build this order. I got to build this product in this way. So there's a myriad of choices now that you have to make inside your supply chain team, and you have to do it quickly. And this is where I think the biggest opportunity lies for supply chains. And the area that has really advanced in artificial intelligence is this idea of picking up lots of different data sources. So, you know, if you think about the description I just gave and the different teams, wow, you've got data that might come in from your supply chain risk management software that says, oh, I got a problem. You've got a bill of material data set that says, well, here's the components I'd like to use, but my alternative is this. Here's the trade-off. You've got cost data sets that you have to pull together. You have even, and this is a big part of what makes AI, is you might have to be pulling in data from emails or natural language processing or using large language models to pick up these data, import them into your decision-making process, and make some sense of it all. And this is where artificial intelligence is really going to play a big part. Its ability to kind of comprehend all of that before was a person, was a human, to go kind of take that on. So I think that's where the opportunity lies for AI inside the supply chain example.
There's a lot of areas around supply chains that influence your success. So talk to us about other ways that AI might help adjacent areas around supply chains.
Yeah, I mean, there's, you know, I think, again, I want to go back to this common theme of there's a lot of data out there and I got to make some sense of it and I got to go kind of launch some action. And so, you know, if you think about almost any journey that's like that has those characteristics, and I kind of talk about this, having teams think about where in your business life you find yourself going, well, golly, all this data is out there. Why am I having to get a human to go do that? Why am I having to wait a week? It's sitting in a data set, sitting there ready to use. So it's really available to do that. I think, you know, another example that I've seen is you think about a product's journey. So a product like a car starts out on its journey in the beginning and it sets out to go to a certain place. Of course, the promise to management is that it's going to be profitable through its entire life and everything's going to be great. But what usually happens is the product management team gets busy on other products and that product gets turned over to maybe sustaining engineering or the supply chain team and off it goes. But this is where AI can really help in the product's journey along the way to say, guess what we learned? This subcomponent is at end of life or will be in the next 3 years. We just got a notice from the supplier. Wow, the service organization is making a lot of calls on this one element. You know, we used to have engineering and supply chain meetings that had to do all that analysis before and bring all that together and make big, tough decisions, pulling supply chain people and engineers away from their kind of core job to figure out, well, golly, what's going on here? What should we do with this product? Do we need to reinvest it? Do we need to kill it? Do we need to move customers over to alternatives? So that's yet another example of kind of the product life cycle being managed through AI in a way that all that data kind of gets pulled in and gets managed more effectively. So there's probably tons of them like that. And I think as we all set down this AI journey, we're going to find yet more applications where we're going, well, golly, if you could do this, then you could do this next thing along the way. So this is just the beginning, Kevin.
Well, when you talk to your kind of supply chain peers out there, are there common themes like improved decision-making, analytics? Are there just common themes for how AI can improve supply chains?
Yeah, I think, you know, first of all, since it's so new, I think right now the common theme is confusion about what it means and how it can work for me and how is it different from some of the other things I talked about, that vertical software stack and pulling all them together. But the main element is the idea of this really deep thought about finding disparate data sets and how it can be pulled in to be used. They now have, you know, the capability to look at something that might be in SQL, that's a data set, and something that's in Python, that's a software stack, and somehow you can put that together and help make decisions. So it really requires, you know, operational folks to kind of partner with their IT colleagues and et cetera, and think critically about what data is out there and in what format, and why am I limiting my thinking to just data that's in a structured format, structured meaning kind of rows and columns in a format that I expect, and not thinking about it as unstructured or in an alternate format that I heretofore has been unavailable to me, and now I can kind of go use that. So that really is kind of the main area. And I think again, all that combines back with this idea of lots of data, probabilistic decisions that have to be made, and then coordinated action across a variety of different teams and groups to get exactly the outcome that you want. And so I think that's the thinking that organizations have to put in place as they think about AI in their organizations.
At what point will people be comfortable with actually automating it? There's one way where AI just assists the supply chain professional and gives us information, helps make decisions, but is always handing off to a human. When and where do you think automation would have a place, and where might that be in a supply chain where AI just does it?
Yeah, I think, a lot of it kind of gets to how organizations bring in AI. And I think in general, my advice would be take a breath and go slow, because, kind of by your question at the onset, you kind of think of everything as AI. When it's everything, it's really nothing. You can't really put a finger on it. And the area that I see as the best path is at the heart of your question, which is be selective about a couple of areas that you think you can improve. And I'd probably suggest that this S&OP example is probably one of the best. I could probably do a little bit of a double click on that. But find an area where AI could really be helpful. And maybe I'll tell a quick story on that. So when I was a CPO, you'd always have events that would happen, every day, right? Somebody would come in and say, this supplier decommitted, and let's call them up and let's yell at them, and their normal routine was the old way. And then you got to supply chain mapping software that would let you know that faster. I mean, you got multi-tiers down, and you were starting to get some really good intelligence to go do that. But even with that, the problem ended up with this human endpoint. And the human endpoint, I would always say, well, what questions I'm going to ask you? I'm going to ask you the same questions. Is this a material problem for our supply chain? Does this component go in a lot of our current orders where I should worry about it, or is it something we'll deal with? We'll get an alternative sometime. Do we have alternative inventory in stock? And if not, where do we need to go get that? And if we get it, can we launch some action to go get that started? And then if we launch action and we kind of get that started, are we getting the outcome that we want? Because maybe we have to pay expedite fees, and now our margins get hurt. And we may say, hey, I want to satisfy these customers, but I got a business to run as well. So, when I started thinking about just that narrow focus, right, that individual who helped me with reacting to supply chains, I thought, really a lot of the action I set this person off to go do can be programmed in. What did we do last time? The playbook of what worked and what didn't. How you communicated to the sales folks to say, hey, we have the problem, we know the nature of it, and we're working it. You think about AI in combinations with generative AI like ChatGPT or something like that. Well, it can help you even write a note to your colleagues and say, hey, I want you to know I'm working it. Instead of having to work it yourself and do that on the side and distract you from your other work, you can let the algorithm, really an AI, take over and kind of follow that role.
What would be kind of an implementation strategy for AI in a supply chain? What's your advice to us, Joe?
Yeah, I really think, again, taken from your beginning question now, would be to take a breath and go slow. Think about where your vertical stacks already are created. Think about what data sets you have available, and then pick something small and get started. And I would say kind of stay away from the fear element and a couple distractions that you could have. We talked about data. It may be something that we should just spend a moment on, because an objection I hear a lot is, well, we're going to clean up our data, and right after the day after we get clean data, we're going to get started. I haven't met a company yet, and as you said, you and I are old. We've done this a lot. I haven't met a company yet that says our data is great, so we can take on anything. They're all saying we're not ready yet. And I would offer, especially in the AI world, AI can clean up a lot of that, and AI can take the data that you're currently using now and that you're currently making decisions on now, and just speed that up. So don't wait for your data to be perfect. Don't get distracted by all of that. Find a starting point and get started. There's a lot of outside help. Yes, I'm one of them. There's a ton of folks out there that can do that have been down the journey and said, okay, here's maybe a good starting point for you. Let's talk and separate what is common, what tools are out there already in the world, and where I can particularly help you. So that would be my suggestion.
So a lot of people, they fear change. I think it's biological, actually, or evolution, or evolutionary, where anytime there's something new, humans get afraid of it. And so do you think supply chain professionals will embrace or fear AI, in mass, and if they do, how do you think they should approach it?
Yeah, they'll do both. They'll both embrace it, but fear it at the same time, and that's probably the proper balance of respect that you have to give a new technology. But I think through my career, and I think through some of the supply chain planning software when it first came out. Well, I'm kind of used to doing my own planning on Excel spreadsheets. Okay, and now we have advanced tools we can do that. Same thing with supply chain risk management software, right? There's a lot that those tools can do now, that kind of help you get the job done without having to fear it. But I do think that as the expression goes, it's the fear itself that's the problem, and I don't think it's something that should be feared any more than you would fear a new employee coming in. So you think about, I got an opening in my organization. I need a skill. I need a skill that will take me where I need to go. Maybe it was a vacancy that was there before, but you're bringing in a brand new person and you hope that they're going to solve the problem. But more times than not, we're used to that. And maybe the element is the element of, well, I can control the employee and I'm worried about not being able to control AI. A lot of that is, don't watch too many, science fiction movies and get yourself all distracted. I don't think there's anything out there yet that's quite the Terminator, but have respect for it. And like you were talking about, kind of on the loop, right? Make sure you're sitting in the supervisory mode to kind of make it happen. So I think the fear has to fall away like any other change that's happened in supply chain for the past 20, 30 years. I wish there had been a time. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Joe, you and I have had some really in-depth discussions around sustainability in the past years around supply chain. And if you want a greener or more sustainable supply chain, how do you even start about that? What role do you think AI might be able to play in helping an organization make a more sustainable supply chain?
Yeah, we have. And when I think about that particular problem, that really is an issue of gathering data and integrating it into your decisions. So if you think about all the things we just talked about, that just sounds like it's right in the sweet spot of AI, right? Because if I have to pick a set of suppliers, then gathering the sub-tier supplier, maybe it's on conflict minerals, or maybe it's about its greenhouse gases, et cetera, gathering those data and integrating it into my sourcing decision is like perfect for AI to be able to do, because that's what it's just so good at. So I just think it'll help make those decisions happen more easily. Because again, wouldn't you rather just ask your computer, tell me, how do I build this bill of material with my most sustainable components? If I ask you that question, computer, go get me an answer. And it does it in a millisecond. Think about going out to your team and saying, okay, I want you to look at all the different sources of supply around the world. I want you to dig deep to know which supply, and then I want you to go answer that question. And they'll say, boss, I'll see you in a couple of months, when we have that answer. And so I think all that's just going to become routine. Think about over time about how databases get more robust, and those data will be more available to everybody. And that'll just be a natural part of how we make decisions.
Wow. So if we fast forward 3 years, Joe, what might the whole process look like in 3 years? where people have had time to assimilate, to understand and implement AI in a supply chain
Yeah.
process.
Yeah. Can't wait to see that world. Yeah, I think, in thinking about it, Kevin, you almost got to think about, well, what have we talked about that AI is going to do for us? And then kind of subtract that from our routine. So, again, I think about either being a team member in a supply chain organization or leading one, how much time my team members spent gathering data, doing analysis, answering the obvious questions, not just obvious, the questions that we asked the last 10 times, we had the same problem. Trying to figure out, well, the last person had that problem, but they got promoted and I don't know the answer. So I'm going to have to go back and learn all over again from them. So we'll spend less time doing that and we'll spend more time doing more value added items. So, I mean, I think, again, getting back to the fear thing, well, I mean, you're going to be spending less time, doing the work that is kind of the mundane and more time doing things that you're going to gravitate to and enjoy and add more value to the organization. So that's the way I see us going. History kind of shows us that in the past, these tools in the end has really helped us be more productive, help us achieve our goals more, and most importantly, deliver satisfied customers that can, that'll be happier and buy our products again and again and again.
Joe, thank you so much for bringing your experience and expertise to our program.
Always enjoy talking with you, Kevin.
So happy holidays, and I look forward to next time.
You bet. Thanks a lot.